Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Hey everyone, Carrie here. First of all, I'm sure some of you are wondering, where have I been? Well, the end of April and beginning of May have two events that I went to. In addition to that, there's also been a lot that I've been dealing with, and frankly, the world has been quite a bit depressing. These recent events, even if they could sometimes be challenging, have been one of the things that have helped me along, as well as my wonderful people and my cat Logan, who isn't going to say anything. Well, without further ado, I want to talk about my time at the Trash Panda Open at World's Best Comics and Games in Newport News, Virginia. This is the second year that the event has been run, and while I couldn't make the first year, I wasn't going to miss it again. Now, before I go running into everything, some of you may not be familiar with a trash panda. The trash panda is indigenous to North America and is also commonly referred to as a raccoon and derived from the dialect of Algonquin spoken by the Powhatan, and it was called a raccoon, which means he who scratches with his hands. They look like little bandits with masks on their faces, and this endears them to Capellans, and they are the Florida man of North American mammals, which endears them to Davians near the periphery. I need one as a pet friend for Logan. Anyway, this little bugger is also the mascot of many of the local players in the Norfolk and Newport News region of Virginia and the namesake of the tournament. So anyway, info dump over. The Trash Panda Open was a 2-day event which had a 3-round classic BattleTech tournament on Saturday. Yes, I still use that term. I lived through the dark times, as well as a 3-round Alpha Strike tournament on Sunday. So first of all, the tables for the event were all based on water features, the Outer Banks, and 2 each of the Baltimore Inner Harbor and Hampton Roads. These things looked amazing, and I was very impressed. Also, because of the amount of terrain and water involved, there was a lot of variation in elevation and a ton of water to hide and fight in. As I said, the first day was classic BattleTech, and your classic list had to include mechs from your Alpha Strike list. Or it might have been the other way around. Anyway, so I brought, for Unicorn Company, Mercs in the Ill-Clan era. We had a 3-4 Battlemaster 1GB, the Royal model with a pair of ERPPCs, a large pulse laser, and 4 medium lasers if you're unfamiliar with it, a 4.5 RFL 5D Rifleman, which is the 2 ERPPC, 2 large laser model from House Davian in 3060 and would be my MVP in one game. Then I had a 3.4 MAD-2R Marauder, the Royal one, once again ERPPCs, there might be a pattern here, and all the double heat sinks. And finally, a 4.5 Archer 2RB, which has Artemis 4 LRM-20s, basically a mostly Royal list. I took this list because everything's straightforward. PPCs all work underwater, and the Archer is a good fire support unit, even if it can only really do things on land. My first round was against Eric Salzman from Catalyst Game Labs. He brought a Clan Spaniel list, which I think used the Clan Wolfmaster unit list and consisted of a Warhammer 2C, Goshawk 2, Peregrine 3, and Mongoose C. The first scenario was called Chow Time, and it had players trying to capture cargo containers full of the meats from a similar to, but legally distinct from, Arby's restaurant on an island in the middle of the water. Needless to say that Eric had far more mobility than I did and was able to capture most of the meats. I think I made him drop one twice, which destroyed it, and he took the win and be similar to, but legally distinct from, Arby's handily. My second round was against Ron, who was running a Davian list, which consisted of a Hellspawn. I didn't write down the variant. Assassin 80, Enforcer 6R, Gunsmith, and Legionnaire 2XU. We played this one on one of the, I think it was the Inner Harbor maps, and the scenario for this one was called Marco Polo and was based on total battle value destroyed, as well as destroying a commander designated by the controlling player, which was hidden information. The game also had a destroyer in the middle of water, and if your commander left the water, it would start opening fire. Like, this was a massive ship. There should be pictures. This was interesting because I ended up with the rifleman starting underwater against his gunsmith. In the smaller Depth 1 water features, he had a Legionnaire and Hellspawn poking around with my other 3 mechs. The Enforcer was deployed in a place with no line of sight and ended up going in the water as well as, with his Hellspawn. This wasn't for no reason, though, as an all-energy rifleman is blessed by Neptune, apparently, as it was a monster when the pilot could almost face roll the controls with little to no regard for heat. I ended up winning this scenario and actually got to bring the destroyer home, so now the Prion sits on my table, partially painted, and will be making an appearance at Eastern Assault. Actually, let me say this right now. Recording this after Eastern Assault, it did not make the appearance. I apologize. The next game, I was teamed up with Jason Hanza, and we were playing a scenario called Ironclads. Honestly, our lists didn't really make much difference. The way it worked, each team had 2 monitor gunships, 1 for each player, and could take 2,000 points of their forces. What did matter was our opponent's 2 Balak gunship helicopters, which made mincemeat of our gunships. It was a quick and brutal game, and our boats went down quickly, though not before my monitor did disintegrate one of the Balaks with an AC-20 shot, which was beautiful. We then get into the next day, and this was Alpha Strike, and also where I was able to really put my battlefield support options to good use. So I didn't mention it before, but players were able to bring up to 10 battlefield support points. I chose to bring something simple that couldn't be countered. They didn't play much of a role in the Classic tournament because I kept forgetting about them, but in Alpha Strike, oh, it was so fun. So, other than the BSP, my Alpha Strike list... Oh, by the way, those BSPs, before I go into that, long toms. So, other than my battlefield support, my list for Alpha Strike consisted of a Rifleman 5D at skill 2, the Battlemaster 1GB at skill 3, Marauder 2R at skill 3, and Archer 2RB at skill 3. 2 SM-1 tank destroyers at skill 3 each. Those 2 tanks would become known as the Assholes, and 2 Patton tanks, Ultra models, at skill 3. It's a simple, fun list, and I really enjoy playing it because most of the mechs are rather robust and fun to use. They're also very redundant, for lack of better words, with similar attack profiles and armor. Game 1 was Hold the Line, and this one I believe I won, but not by much, and our scores were very close. I was playing against Corey, who brought an LRM Carrier C at skill 2, a Vulture Prime at skill 2, a Ryokan Prime at skill 3, a Dasher H at skill 3, a Manowar Prime at skill 4, a Dragonfly J at skill 4, an Honorius Attack VTOL at skill 4, and a Thor B at skill 4. We were playing Hold the Line on the Outer Banks map, and the very hilly terrain on one side played to my advantage as I was able to roll for table edge and forced him to essentially do a beach landing. He did swing the Dragonfly and Thorn around my left flank. Both of them ended up with fire control hits, and the Dasher and VTOL met their end at Long Tom Artillery, while the assholes zoomed around shooting whatever they could as a pair, giving the Thor the fire control hit and also doing a great deal of damage to the Vulture before they were ever hit with return fire. By the end, we had both gotten a large number of our forces onto each other's side of the table, and in most cases, just barely, with a few exceptions. Round 2 was played on one of the Inner Harbor maps, with a destroyer in the middle of the table again. My opponent for this round was Hansa. Now, I actually end up seeing Jason quite a bit at the local conventions because he comes from somewhere in the area. I've never asked, but I think he's from the nebulous, undefined Central Virginia region, which can be anywhere in the state unless you live in Southwest Virginia or Northern Virginia. Don't ask me how it works. It's just how it works. Anyway, from these mysterious places that Hansa hails, he brought a list full of clan goodies, including a Bandit C hovercraft at skill 4, a Heikyu H at skill 4, an Ostrog 2CB at skill 4, a Thresher at skill 4, a Stone Rhino 6 at skill 4, a Pariah A at skill 4, a Brock 2 at skill 4, a Goss Hawk at skill 4, Gnome Battle Armor, and Salamander Battle Armor. The scenario was called Hot Potato, and perched upon the destroyer was a pristine Raven 5X, well, Raven 2, which is key to the scenario. As each turn that a player does damage to it, they gain control of it. But they have to have done the most damage. Well, this mech has 6 armor and structure combined. Hans and I set out our forces on either side of the body of water, the Raven on the boat in the middle, and after a movement, Hansa shot the Raven first as he lost initiative. He ended up doing 3 damage to it, as well as destroying one of the assholes. So, the person to do the most damage gets control. Hansa has put 3 damage on it, and me, being the mercenary I am, I can't have his Brox taking this valuable prize. That would definitely cause some problems with whoever my employer was. So my archer, who had clean line of sight on it, opened up at medium range and rolled 5 successes. Though, of course, since the Raven can only take 3 more damage, it went down with each of us having done 50% of the damage in 1 turn. We finished out the firing phase, and by the end, I had taken down the Heikyu and he one of the assholes, SM-1 tank destroyers. In the end, we ended up with Hansa getting the win because we had no other way to decide it other than PV, and he had killed more PV than I had. After that, we had what I can only describe as the longest break for the tournament, as everyone else was still going and somehow hadn't mutually destroyed their Raven 2s, which I think was expected to happen much quicker. The final game was another pair-up. This time, I once again found myself facing off against Hansa. My ally was a Blakist, and in spite of my best judgment, and with the help of quite a few C-bills, and the fact they turned over a Celestial Omni-Mech, I worked with them. We don't normally work with Blakists, but, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. The scenario is called Avast 2 Double Trouble, and the goal of the mission was to get as many points of our forces onto a battleship which was in the middle of the table. Now, when I say the middle of the table, this thing is almost the length of the table, and comes in at about 3 feet long. So it dominates the table. Our game got truncated, unfortunately, and we ended up only playing like 2.5 or 3 rounds because of time constraints. In that time, though, Hansa and his ally managed to sink our monitor that was carrying a Patton, and on turns 1 and 2, I ended up shelling Hansa repeatedly with one of my long tom strikes, hitting his mech carrying battle armor, and I don't think he's ever had to deal with that because I essentially erased a bunch of battle armor while they were still on the mechs. So, yeah, like it was absolutely devastating, but it was also so fun, just lobbing long toms, and all these people had like anti-heavy strike, air cover and all that, and I was just like, yeah, no, I got long toms. By turn 3, we had just started really getting our units onto the ship, aside from the assholes who had actually gotten themselves hoisted up on the ship on turn 2 in a little hidey hole between 2 secondary batteries next to the tower on our side of the ship. So unfortunately, fighting on the deck of the ship didn't really get to happen. I was really looking forward to fighting on the ship, Pirates of the Caribbean style, with a Royal Battlemaster dual-wielding PPCs. Come on, who would not love that? So overall, the tournament was fun, and to be fair, I took a list meant to be fun, and haven't been focusing on bringing super crunchy cheese lists anymore. The Alpha Strike games were fun, and I got to spread the word of our Lord and Savior Tube Artillery to everyone I played against. Now, I didn't finish anywhere high, but I did get, along with Hansa, the Ricky Bobby Award for the fastest game of the tournament when we mutually killed off the Raven 2 in turn 1. It wasn't my fault, he helped. I will definitely be going back again next year, and we'll be bringing more fun in the form of Long Tom goodness. Thank you so much for watching, well, more listening. I want to thank all of my patrons, channel members, and our sponsor, FortressMiniaturesandGames.com, who you should definitely check out for all of your BattleTech needs. If you want to support the channel, you can like and subscribe for free, and if you have a few C-bills you can spare, you can either become a channel member or become a patron at patreon.com/unicorn company. So, like I said, I had a good time. I'm really glad I went, and to be fair, it's taken me a while to get this out, so I hope that all of you out there, every mech warrior is being safe and stays safe. So until next time, this is Carrie signing off. Oh, I think Logan sneezed in the background. Thank you to my patrons. At Captain, we have Sarah. Lieutenants, we have Boy in a Box and Nasty Taurus. Sergeants, BZ Archer, Steven, Faz, Housemaster Poding, and Country Fried Minis. And our cadets, Scott, Jamie, NB Kaiju, Domini, and Brother Carr. I also want to thank my channel members, Miss J. Speechly, Anonymous Only Agent, and Greg Swars. And finally, Unicorn Company's sponsor, Fortress Miniatures and Games. Check them out. They're a huge supporter of the community and the best place to get all your BattleTech needs taken care of. If you want to support Unicorn Company, you can become a channel member here on YouTube or a patron at patreon.com/Unicorn Company. Links to my sponsors, also Country Fried Minis and Scott's Game Room, will be in the description. Thank you all, and stay safe out there, Mech Warriors. This is Carrie, signing off.